Okay, y'all, thank you for coming. At 9:15 this morning, I lifted the evacuation order on the islands, the barrier islands that I issued for Hurricane Irma. Those islands, Hilton Head, Defusky, Tulfini, and Knowles Islands have already been opened for re-entry, as you probably know. There's restricted access to Harbor Island, Hunting Island, and Fripp Islands, along with Edisto Beach. Restricted access will be allowed by local law enforcement as conditions permit, and there will likely be press conferences or announcements by local officials as to entry and restrictions on entry there. We urge everybody to use patience as they return home. Ask that you comply with these specific restrictions from local law enforcement and local government officials on your way home. We want everyone to be safe. You may encounter some roadblocks, probably not, but you may encounter some roadblocks and detours as you return home. Please comply with those signs, those instructions, and local law enforcement, and please do not drive around barricades under any circumstances. They're there for a reason. And don't use the emergency lanes because those are reserved for emergency vehicles. We have one known fatality, unfortunately. Mr. Charles Saxon, 57 years old, of Calhoun Falls in Abbeville County, was hit by a limb or tree, or anyway, we've had that one fatality, and our hearts and prayers are with his family. With that, I'd like to call on John Quagliarello for meteorologist report.
Thank you, Governor. Well, the good news is Irma is now a post-tropical cyclone, and it will continue to weaken today as it approaches the Tennessee Valley. Really, the only concerns we still have for today would be the potential for minor coastal flooding, mainly along the central and southern portion of the coast around the time of high tide this afternoon, which will generally be sometime between 1 and 1:30 this afternoon in the Charleston and Hilton Head areas. So again, just minor coastal flooding possible this afternoon. And then in terms of our rivers, they have responded to some of the rainfall that we received yesterday. Some areas did get as much as 6 to 8 inches, and some spots even higher than that. So we have river flood warnings for the Santee River near Jamestown, which may reach flood stage later today. The Waccamaw River near Conway, also expected to reach minor flood stage later today and persist through the weekend. And also on the Black Creek near Quinby, we're watching that as it might reach flood stage Friday morning and also continue to be in flood into the weekend. And in terms of observations, I just took a look at some observations across the state yesterday. We had the highest wind gust we had reported was Paris Island, 76 miles per hour. Folly Beach Pier was 72 miles per hour. Sullivan's Island, 68 miles per hour. Beaufort, 66 miles per hour. Heading over more toward the Midlands, Lancaster Airport, 55. Orangeburg, 54. Columbia Airport, 51. And then even the upstate, Coney County, 58 miles an hour, and Anderson County, 52 miles per hour. So, 50 to 60 miles an hour is pretty common across much of the state due to the storm yesterday. And that's all I have. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, sir. General Livingston, National Guard.
Thank you, Governor. Secretary Hall will be talking about road conditions, but just want to talk about the safety aspect of it. You're going to see a lot of movement of emergency crews to include National Guard, some moving to Florida, some demobilizing as the day and the rest of the week goes on. So I encourage patience, understanding, cooperation with all law enforcement and with all local officials so that we can move very smoothly back home, and we can also allow our emergency responders to either go south to help our neighbors or to return to their normal life. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, General. And correction, we do have one other fatality. Director Smith.
Thank you, Governor. Give me a moment, please.
Can we come back to you?
Yes, sir, please. Thank you,
Okay,
sir.
we'll proceed on. Kim Stinson, Emergency Management Division.
Thank you, Governor. Our Sioc priorities here at the State Emergency Operations Center have shifted a little bit. Obviously, moving to reentry and continuing shelter operations and supporting that, and also, very importantly, planning for and supporting damage assessment in the local areas. We still have EMD personnel in selected counties throughout the state. We've got 29 county emergency operations centers that are still open. Counties will begin their damage assessment today, now that it's safe to get out in the area, and we're prepared to assist those counties with damage assessment if they need it. Initial reports that there's no widespread damage in the impacted areas, but we'll find out more later today, I'm pretty sure, in terms of that. Some likely requests that we could possibly get today are to assist with debris management and again with damage assessment. I mentioned that. The public information phone system, our disaster hotline, is still open for anybody to call in, all citizens, if they have any issues on reentry or any other disaster-related issues, and that's 1-866-246-0133. And again, visit our website at scemd.org for updated disaster information. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Got it? Director Smith.
Thank you, Governor. Apologize about that earlier. As the Governor mentioned, we do have 2 storm-related fatalities. The Governor gave you the first one. The second one occurred yesterday on I-77. It was a traffic collision involving 2 vehicles. And unfortunately, one of the occupants sustained fatal injuries as a result of the collision. The name is, I'll spell it, Z-H-E-N, it's Zen, last name Tang, T-A-I-N, 21 years of age, and had a Florida registration, tag registration. Again, our protocol, anytime we get a fatality, we will make contact with the coroner's office, and until the coroner has confirmed that is storm-related, then we will share that information with you all. And Governor, I can proceed with my briefing.
Proceed, please.
Thank you, Governor. Right now, for the Department of Public Safety, our primary focus today would be on the traffic management mission. We have 233 troopers and state transport police officers who will focus on traffic management, whether that's line patrol, quick clearance of vehicles blocking the roadway, collision investigation, diverting traffic should the need arise for that. Also would like to remind them over in public to move over for authorized emergency vehicles. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And our hearts and prayers are with the family of Zen Tang as well. Director Hall, Secretary Hall.
Thank you, Governor. We have completed our damage assessment for the state's roads and bridges, and I'm pleased to report that we have sustained very little damage to our infrastructure in the state. The only 2 known locations are at US 21 Bridge there at Harbor River that we're making an emergency repair to now, and 1 small section of I-95 north in Dillon County that we currently have a detour in place for. Traffic is higher than normal across the state. There are a few pockets of congestion, as you could expect. As Director Smith and the General mentioned, we do have traffic flowing through and around the state for various reasons. I-26 at I-95 in particular is experiencing a few pockets of congestion here or there, and I-95 southbound is busy as well. I'd like to express our gratitude to the power companies for their crews out helping us get the downed power lines out of the way so we can get the trees out of the roadways, as well as to the first responders who, alongside our 2,000 plus employees last night, were able to get most of the roads reopened overnight. We have just a few pockets of closed roads across the state, nothing significant. And of course, you can go to our webpage if you're interested in seeing where those are. Our next focus is moving forward on the debris and getting that cleaned up and picked up and making sure that we return back to normal as quickly as possible. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, ma'am. Director Susan Alford. DSS.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Governor. Overnight, we had 24 general population shelters open, including the Anderson Civic Center, with a total occupancy of 1,059. Many of our shelters are closing this morning and will continue to close throughout the day as residents are returning home. As of 9:45 this morning, we had 18 shelters that remained open and also an occupancy of 805. We expect both of those numbers to decrease as folks are able to get back to their residences today. As shelters close this morning, though, we'd like to emphasize that anyone who has been displaced and still needs shelters, you can visit the SCEMD website to find out the listing of the open shelters that are available. We will continue to maintain open shelters for Irma evacuees from South Carolina, but also neighboring states, and we'll continue to work with our partners to make sure that we keep displaced individuals safe as they're trying to get back to their homes and their communities. And as always, we'd like to thank our partners as well who have been so great during this crisis, during Irma, and have helped us really create a seamless, integrated shelter operation throughout this time period. We'd like to thank the National Guard, the American Red Cross, Salvation Army, SLED, and all of our law enforcement partners. And also would like to thank in particular the South Carolina Food Bank Association, who has been a wonderful partner and tireless in their efforts to try to make sure that all of our residents and shelters have had food available to them as they've been during the moments of crisis, that they've gotten quality meals while they've been in shelter operations. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, Ms. Alford. Colonel Taylor, Department of Natural Resources.
Thank you,
Yes,
Governor.
sir.
I would like to report that as before sunset yesterday, we were able to get some boats over to Defusky with Beaufort County Sheriff's deputies with assisting DNR. We identified all 102 residents that had decided to stay and talked to them, found they were safe, and gave them an opportunity even then to leave again if they would like to, but as we expected, they continued to stay. But we're happy to say they are all safe and sound. Today, as we speak now, we're doing the same mission with SLED on Edisto Beach, identifying the 62 residents that stayed on Edisto, and we expect to have good news there very shortly. Our river sweeps will begin at noon today by boat and plane. These river sweeps are mainly focused now to identify any debris that may be in our waterways so that if it needs to be marked, we can mark that debris for safe boating. We still would encourage our boaters. It's not quite time yet to do sightseeing. There may be trees, floating docks, pilings floating in our waterways, and stay safe and stay off the water for now. In that river sweep flight, we'll also have DHEC flying with us to monitor beach erosion and to get a good idea what our beach erosion looks like. So they will be in the plane with us during our river sweeps. We assisted EMS last night in the Beaufort area, helping get EMS into some residents that had problems by boat where they could not get their vehicles in. And so during that process, we rescued or brought out to safety as many as 3 residents along with their pets. And so that completes my report.
Thank you, Colonel. David Wilson, DHEC, please.
Thank you, Governor. At DHEC, we will be working with the affected inpatient health facilities to ensure that they are safe and ready to begin receiving patients again in the areas where they were evacuated. We have begun the post-storm assessment of priority dams to determine if there are any problems that need to be addressed. We would encourage all dam owners to go out and look at their dams and make sure that there are no problems as a result of the storm. And then finally, we are working with those people who made use of our special medical needs shelters to determine when it is safe for them to return home. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, sir. Dave Tafawa from SLED.
Thank you, Governor.
Yes, sir.
SLED, along with our other state and National Guard law enforcement partners, continue to do security missions in the Edisto Beach and Barrier Islands area, and we continue to stand by for any further law enforcement requests that are received. Thank
Very
you.
much. Thank you very much. Duke Scott.
Thank you, Governor. As to fuel, we received no issues from our fuel providers. We've been in contact with the providers, and they're ready to get in the affected areas and make sure you got gasoline. Beaufort Hilton Head, the Speedway on 1031 is reported to be open. The Speedway on 421 was to be open within the hour, and that was about 9:45, so it should be opening up here. The Circle K's are preparing to open. The outages, we've got a total of 197,550 meters out. SC&G's at 51,000. SC&G was up around 180,000 at one point, and they worked through the night and got these down, those numbers down. Duke is up to 100,000. Of course, Duke's outages came in late during the storm as it moved up. So we hope to see that number dropping here pretty quickly as we go forward. Santee Cooper is at 218. The cooperative is at 45,000. That number has dropped significantly as well. It's dropped about 30,000 since early this morning. The top counties. Greenville County is at 35,400. Anderson County is at 30,600. Pickens County is at 20,600. Oconee 17,000. So you can see all those are up there in the upstate. Charleston County still has 15,000. And for those of you who are returning to Beaufort County, you may experience some outages. You find some outages. Beaufort County had about 14,000 out just about an hour or so ago. And if you own the island with Palmetto Electric Cooperative, they had 2,000 out at that point in time. So we're trying to get restoration. SC&G's 80% restored. Duke's 36% restored. Santee Cooper is considered 100% restored. The cooperatives are 85% restored. And they've got the crews out there. Cooperatives are bringing more crews in. They're growing them from Arkansas to get crews. So I think we got plenty of crew people out there.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Duke Scott. Willie Nunn with FEMA.
Thank you, Governor.
Yes, sir.
We continue to support the priorities of the state with the reentry, also with the sheltering, and definitely with the preliminary damage assessments. We'll make sure that we continue to support them as they go through that assessment phase. Sir, I'd like to sincerely thank we have sincere gratitude for the cooperation of the state partners and all the partners across the state. There's been strong collaboration, and we're going to continue that throughout this recovery operation.
Thank you, Mr. Nunn. Jonathan Jones, State Fire Marshal.
Thank you, Governor. During the storm, we had no request for state search and rescue resources through our urban search and rescue team or through firefighter mobilization. I think that this speaks volumes towards the capabilities and resiliency of our local fire and rescue first responders who responded throughout the day and into the night. I spoke with a number of fire chiefs from around the state this morning, and they all indicated definitely an increase in overall call volume due to storm-related incidents. Some numbers of interest from around the state. In the city of Charleston, there were 171 storm-related calls, including 12 confirmed water rescues. And the most significant event was a fire in the basement storage area of the California Dreamin' restaurant there that was also partially inundated with water. Midway Fire Rescue down in the Litchfield and Pawleys Island area evacuated 6 people from the rising storm surge on Pawleys Island using fire department vehicles. Burton Fire Rescue in Beaufort County rescued 15 people out on Seabrook from the rising storm surge. And actually our highest call volume was up in the Oconee County and upstate area. Oconee County responded to 715 storm-related calls overnight, mostly wind damage, trees down, power lines down, and those sorts of things. That makes up 10% of their annual call volume in just one night. So again, I think it speaks volumes to their capabilities and resiliency and their ability to handle things at the local level. Thank you, Governor.
Okay. Thank you very much. This will probably be our last press conference about this hurricane. Things have worked, as I've said before, we've got a great team. This team, South Carolina, is superior, as you've seen from the counties, the cities, and the press as well has done a fine job of getting the information out, and we appreciate that very much. I would urge people again, as people are returning back to their homes and businesses, there's probably a good bit of anxiety. There'll be a little bit of congestion here and there. We'd ask people to don't let your curiosity get you in the way of people trying to get back to their homes or their businesses, and be careful for the emergency vehicles as well as the electric companies, the power companies that are out there trying to restore power. There'll be plenty of time to look at the damage and look at the trees, but let's get everybody back in their homes and businesses safely first. And with that, are there any questions? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Director Smith, a little bit more information on that second fatality. You said it definitely was related to Irma, and is that just because that guy was fleeing Florida, or why?
It was yesterday, according to our preliminary investigation. The vehicle was driving too fast for conditions, lost control on the wet surface and the heavy winds, and sideswiped another vehicle. Obviously, from there, the vehicle struck a guardrail and overturned. So definitely related to the storm.
Governor, you said some of those barrier islands would still be under restricted access. Can you explain a little bit what you mean by restricted access?
That will be up to the local officials, notably the sheriff and others, to determine when access and how access should be allowed. There's not nearly the kind of traffic there that you have on Hilton Head, of course, and Hilton Head is in good shape and was opened up this morning at 9:15. But there is some concern about the roads or conditions that they may not be certain about at this time on those other islands. So that'll be handled by the local officials.
In terms of damage, are we looking at more wind or water? Like wind taking down trees or water flooding, anything like that?
I don't know that we've got any accurate assessments on that, but there's a good bit of damage, and as you heard a moment ago up in the upstate from Duke Scott, the head of the regulatory staff, a lot of calls about wind damage, which is always a problem. But we really don't have any accurate information at this time.
In terms of roads and beach erosion, obviously both Hunting and Edisto got hit pretty bad last year, and there was a beach renourishment project for Edisto earlier this year. Any indication the feds would help out with another renourishment project, or should the state, are the roads filled with sand again?
I don't know the answer about whether the roads are filled with sand, but I'm sure there's some sand. But all of those questions, we're going to be as aggressive and polite as we can be to try to get help to address those questions. Ms. McKinney.
Governor or Secretary Hall, with the damage of the Harbor Island Bridge, does that mean that Hunting Island and Fripp are cut off at this point? Is that bridge out, or is it just?
If you recall, last year we had one lane of one side of the bridge that was interrupted. That repair held during this storm, but the other side of the bridge, one lane on the other side, that causeway coming into it, we've got to make an emergency repair on it. So we're actually working hard to get that road work done, and working very closely with the sheriff down there with regards to access. On Edisto Beach, we have done a preliminary assessment of the sand on the highways, and right now it looks like we've got 1 to 2 foot of sand on Palmetto Boulevard for about 500 to 600 feet. But we're literally on the ground doing the rest of that assessment right this moment.
Can you say exactly?
And on Highway 21, that'll take about a day, we think.
We're working it really hard, and we're going to get it open as quickly as possible.
Can you say exactly how many roads are closed at
Yes.
this moment?
Currently, statewide, we have 162 road closures. Statewide, and that's in 22 counties. It's widespread. Our most impacted county with regards to closures currently is in the upstate, Greenville County. In Jasper County, we have 35 closures. Again, they're mostly on secondary roads, a little bit of flood water, standing water, and some trees still down. But Beaufort County has very few road closures as far as trees and flooding on the roads. So, same thing on Colleton and Clarendon,
How many are in Greenville?
Charleston. I'd have to get that number for you, Tim.
There's no washouts or anything like that for the roadways, is there?
The only one that we're aware of is the US 21 bridge there at Harbor Island, or Harbor Bridge, and that one piece of I-95 that I spoke about well north on, in Dillon County. Everything else is check it out. So far, so good.
More questions?
Any reports of or arrests for looting?
Not at this time.
Governor, based on the damage assessments so far, what you've heard, how do you feel the state fared throughout Irma?
Well, we're very happy the hurricane went somewhere else. That is the main force of it. As far as the preparedness goes, we were very prepared. This team, South Carolina, is terrific. We've had some experience and also some dedicated people at all levels of government. But I think we were fortunate to escape the main blast. But we'll have those assessments later as people return to their homes and businesses and we get those details.
Governor, we received a lot of complaints in Charleston, folks who were wondering why, given the high levels of flooding there, Charleston was not under the evacuation order. Can you explain why it wasn't, and given the level of damage that it did take yesterday, were there any regrets about not issuing that evacuation order?
No, there a lot of thought went into that. Of course, Charleston is not an island; that's a peninsula, so it's a lot easier to get off. You don't have bridges down, and as in Tefusky Island, you have no bridges at all. You have to get off by boat. But also, the evacuating an entire city is something you have to take great caution doing, because there's a lot of economic impact for such a thing, and under the circumstances. We believed then and believe now that the warning that we gave repeatedly of storm surges in excess of 4 to 6 feet was the right way to do it, and that turned out to be precisely the case.
Governor, any thoughts about Jose?
We hope we don't see Jose.
Are there any monitoring preparations for that at this point?
Yes, sir. Right here in this building.
Anything to share on that front? Or?
Not at this time, but we want to get through this one all the way, and then but there's attention being paid to Jose and whatever may be coming next. Y'all, thank you very much.